So, so far we learned different components of LangChain, that is prompt engineering, chains, memory, agents. Now we also have tools. That is, we can provide different tool access to LLM so that the LLM can access outside world, right? So now let's go to VS Code, and inside our tools and agents demo, let me create a new Python file, and here we will be using Apify, and by using Apify, let's try to scrape a website. Okay, so that is the project we will be implementing now. So let's save this file as web scraping using Apify. So we will be scraping a website by using Apify. In order to use the Apify, first thing is you need to get the API key, right? So let me take you to the Apify official web page. So this is how it looks. Scrape TikTok profiles, extract places from Google Maps, download Instagram posts, crawl website to feed AI, extract products from Amazon, right? This Apify is your full stack platform for web scraping, right? So this is one of the web scraping tool. So if you notice here, we have different actors which you can use to do various activities, right? So you can do the TikTok data extraction, or you can scrape Instagram or Google Maps extractor or website content crawler. This is the one we will be using now to scrape a website. And you can also scrape Amazon, right? Or you can build your own actor also. Instead of using the existing actors, you can build your own actor also. So this is the official Apify platform. So here you can click on login and then click on sign up, and you can sign up with your Gmail account here. So you can continue with your Google account and click on sign up, right? So once you create an Apify account, then click on login and provide your email address and password and click on login. So this is how it looks once you log into Apify. So once you create an account, Apify will provide you some free credits. So before you recharge your account, make sure you use your free credits, right? So once you log into Apify, click on settings, API and integrations, and here you can see your personal API token. So click on this to copy your API key and then store this inside your environment variable. So that is how you can create an Apify account and then get your API key. So we use this Apify to scrape websites, right? So here, let's try to create API key for Apify also, Apify API key, and then whatever the key that you get from your Apify account, make sure you replace here, right? So that is how you will store your API key inside this environment file. And now, first thing is we know we have to install all the required packages. So I have already installed these packages, that is LangChain Apify. So we are using a LangChain package, that is LangChain-Apify, and we are also installing LangChain community and then Apify client, right? So make sure you install these three packages in order to scrape a website by using Apify, right? And once you install all the required packages, the next thing is we have to load the required modules. So we are trying to import vector store index creator. This is from LangChain indexes, and then Apify wrapper. We got this one from LangChain Apify package, right? So we have to install this to use Apify wrapper, and also this document from LangChain core documents, OpenAI embeddings. You know this already, in order to create the embeddings, and we are using OpenAI as our LLM, and this is to load the environment variables, right? Now, first thing is let's try to load the environment variables by using load underscore dot env function, right? And then the next thing is let's try to read the API keys. So we are reading OpenAI API key and also Apify API key, right? So make sure you give the same name inside this environment file, okay? Whatever name you are providing inside this environment file, you have to give the same name so that you will get the key, right? So once you read the API keys, the next step is store these inside the environment variables, right? So OpenAI API key and also Apify API token. Now, the first thing is let's try to instantiate Apify wrapper. So this is the Apify wrapper class, and if you want to read more about Apify wrapper, so this is the official documentation from LangChain. So you can go through this and see what kind of parameters or functions that this class supports, right? So once you instantiated this class, now let's try to call the method call_actor to crawl a website, right? So let's try to print call website content crawler. So inside Apify wrapper, we have a method called call_actor. And if you notice here, we have different parameters inside this method. So we are passing actor ID as Apify/website content crawler. So this is the actor that we are using. And in case if you are using different actors, for example, Amazon or Instagram, right? So then you have to replace this actor. And here we are trying to crawl a Wikipedia website. Instead of this website, you can replace with any other website and see if you're able to scrape the content, right? And this is nothing but the document page content is equal to item of text and metadata is equal to source item of URL. We are trying to provide the source also, right? From where this content has been scraped, right? So that is what we are giving here. So by using this call_actor method, we can pass the website that we want to crawl, right? So now once we get the data, we have to convert that into embeddings, right? Because we know LLM cannot understand text and it can only understand numbers, right? So let's try to define the embedding model. Here we will be using OpenAI embeddings. So we created our embeddings. Now the next step is let's try to compute the embeddings by initializing the vector index from the crawled documents, right? So we stored our document inside this loader. So here we are trying to initialize the vector index, which is from vector store index creator, which we have imported from LangChain indexes. For the embedding, we are giving our embeddings model, which we have defined before, that is OpenAI embeddings. And inside this vector store index creator, we have a method called from_loaders, from where we want to load this, right? We stored our scrape data inside this loader variable, right? So that is what we are trying to pass here. And once we created the vector index for our crawled document, the next step is let's try to initialize the LLM. So here we are using OpenAI, which we have imported from LangChain community LLMs. So here we initialized our LLM and we are using OpenAI as our LLM, right? So now this is nothing but a RAG application, right? So we scraped a website, which is nothing but our Wikipedia website. And we scraped this website content and we stored inside this loader variable. And we created the embeddings and we initialized the vector index and we stored inside this index variable, right? Once you convert the content into embeddings and stored inside a vector database, meaning you can ask any questions from this website, right? So now this is nothing but a RAG application, right? Because we scraped the content. This content is from a Wikipedia website. We scraped the content by using Apify website content crawler actor and we stored inside this loader. And then we created the embeddings. We are using OpenAI embeddings. And then we created the vector index by using vector store index creator and we passed our data, right? So now once you have this, you can ask any question. So now let's try to ask any question and see if it is trying to answer or not. So the query is, what is generative artificial intelligence, right? Now let's see if our LLM is able to answer. Index, this is where we created our vector index. Inside that we have a method called query with sources and we have to pass our input, that is the query, and also the LLM, which we have initialized before, right? That is our OpenAI LLM. And once we get the results, let's try to get both the answer and also the source, right? So let's print the result and also the answer as well as the source from where it is trying to get the answer for us, right? So it is kind of a chatbot, right? So you can read the content from a PDF instead of this website, right? And you can try to implement different scenarios here. So let me save this code and let's try to click on run and see if we are able to see the results or not, right? So let's click on the run. So you can see it is trying to create the embeddings and then it is able to scrape the website. And what is the question that we asked? What is artificial intelligence? That is the question, and this is the answer, right? So let's quickly review what we learned here. So here our intent is to scrape a website by using Apify, right? So the first thing is we have to install all the required packages. So let me close this and let's minimize this as well. So the first thing is we installed all the required packages, that is LangChain Apify and LangChain Community and Apify Client, right? So these three are the required packages. And once you install the packages, and the next step is loading all the required modules, right? And here we are trying to load the environment variables from this .env file where we stored our Apify API key, right? And here we are trying to read the API keys. One is openai API key and also Apify API token, and we are storing those two inside these environment variables. And then we instantiated this Apify wrapper class, which is from LangChain Apify. And then here we are trying to pass the website that we want to scrape, right? And then the actor that we are using is website content crawler. And inside this Apify wrapper, we have a method called call_actor, and we are setting these parameters. And then we initialized our OpenAI embeddings because we know LLM cannot understand text. So we are trying to create the embeddings. And then here we are initializing the vector index. For this, crawled documents, right? And then here we are trying to initialize the LLM. And then next thing is inside this vector store index creator, we have a method called query with sources. So we are passing both our query, what is our input, and also the LLM, which is nothing but OpenAI LLM. And it is able to scrape this website and was able to answer the question, what is generative artificial intelligence, right? So from this website, okay? So that is how you can use Apify to scrape any website, and you can build different scenarios here, right? So here, instead of this website, you try to replace with your own content. For example, let's say read your content from different data sources, for example, PDF or Word doc or different data sources, and try to store this here. And this is kind of a RAG application. So once you create this vector store, the next step is you can try to ask different questions, right? So that is how you can use Apify to scrape a website. All right. Thank you.